U.S. is on fire, Trump keeps taking L's, and the Supreme Court gives the green light on racial profiling. My name is Jovan Bradley, and this is the Weekly Dump. Welcome to the Weekly Dump, your number 2 source for number 1 news. My name is Jovan Bradley, and we are back to bring you more of what you crave, that sweet, sweet leftist indoctrination. We're currently live here in Studio B, and it is Sunday, September 14th. Oh,
let them know we've got a technical issue.
we've got a technical issue, folks. We are working to correct that, so apologies on our end. Who wants to just listen to me talk? Hi. Hey, chat. Do you hear the sultry sound of my voice? Oh. I tried to do like a low, like a James Earl Jones thing, and it did not work out properly. I attempted. And are working through that technical issue. There! Am I back? No. I thought I was. I got a little overzealous. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes I get a little. Okay. Now let's see if we're back and ready to go. I know chat is saying there was a little bit of an echo, so just let us know if you still hear that, chat, so that we can know on our end. Oh, I'm trying to get my chat pulled up so I can see what you guys are saying as we continue the stream. Welcome. Hello. Hi. We're here. We're back. Weekly Dump. It's a weekly news and discussion show. And the discussion portion will happen today. We're bringing back the discussion portion. So get prepared, okay? As I was saying before, I'm currently in Studio B. I'm joined with producer Steve and technical director Chris, and we do have a really good show lined up for you today. So sit back. Mind virus infect you even further. Oh, okay. Now, just a reminder, okay? If you do want to call into the show, there is a way to do that. If we could throw that calling number on screen really quickly for people so they know. Also, I'm noticing the virtual screen is not the one that I want it to be. And that's on me. So I'll just tell you guys, call in 914-268-6224. The lines are open. You can get through to our call screener, okay? And be prepared to talk to me. You will have to wait. You'll have to wait. But you will. Looks like we are still having some technical issues. I blame my devilishly good looks. You all should as well. When I look at this good on camera, cameras just don't like to work around me. The audio is good, so that's good. I'm glad that you guys can now hear me better. It's just about seeing me better, and we'll get there. Listen, guys, this is these things happen when you're live. I'm not worried about it. Okay, you are gonna lose me in a second, chat, so just be prepared. Mr. Steve, let me. Hey, hopefully we're up and running now. It all should look good to you guys. It looks good to me. Um, I'm going to do a slight introduction again just to say hello and welcome. I do notice that my thing changed again. So I don't know what's going on with the vertical. That's on me. I'll try to figure that out another day. I'm not really trying to figure that out. So if you want the full video experience, if you want to experience the whole video and everything the video is to offer, head on over to Red Mirror Media's YouTube page and you'll get the full tilt, bro. Full screen. Call-in numbers there, 914-268-6224. We're going to be talking about a few things today, primarily that MAGA and Trump are ruining America. They're destroying it from the inside out, purposely, trying to consolidate political power. And I hate that, and you should hate that. And we'll talk about that as we go on to talk about, like, news and all of those other things, okay? So we are going to get into our news today. We are going to talk about what's going on. We're going to give you the skinny. We're going to give you the dirt. We're going to give you the details, okay? And the first, last week we decided, hey, let's not talk about Donald Trump. And this week, we unfortunately can't do that. So to start, Donald Trump decided in a move that can only be described as the purest form of pettiness that Colorado doesn't deserve to host Space Command anymore. And I hear you asking, Jovan, what might be the reason for this sudden shift in a completely useless government entity? Well, my dear dumpers, it's simple. It's because they have the audacity to let people vote by mail. Yes, you heard that right. Colorado said, hey, let's let people use this method of voting that's been around since the 1860s, and Trump lost his poorly tanned orange mind. The president announced that U.S. Space Command will move its headquarters from the Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado Springs, where it's been housed since Biden made the decision in 2023 to make the Big CO its permanent home. The new location will now be at the Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama. Now, while Donald Trump states that the plans were always for Space Command, and I genuinely cannot say that name with a straight face, for Space Command to be located in Huntsville, it's clear that mail-in voting annoyed him so much that it played a part in his decision-making process.
Soon became clear politics also played a role, with the president citing Colorado's mail-in voting system as a major reason he wants to relocate Space Command headquarters.
I want to thank Colorado. The problem I have with Colorado, one of the big problems, they do mail-in voting. They went to all mail-in voting, so they have automatically crooked elections. And we can't have that. When a state is for mail-in voting, that means they want dishonest elections because that's what that means. So that played a big factor also.
So apparently, we're now choosing where to defend America from the evil Jewish space lasers that Marjorie Taylor Greene warned us about on whether Trump likes how people vote. I mean, what's next? Relocating Melania's personal trainer so she'll move back to the White House? I hope not. Next up, 300 South Korean workers got caught up in an ICE raid at a Hyundai plant in Georgia. Hyundai? Hyundai? I don't think I've ever pronounced that word correctly. Anyway, apparently, when Trump said he'd bring back manufacturing jobs to America, he forgot to mention that they'd be staffed by people that ICE would immediately deport. These workers were here legally on temporary visas to help set up battery manufacturing. You know, the kind of advanced technology Trump keeps saying America needs to compete with China. But ICE raided the plant anyway based on a tip from this MAGA Karen. Now, her name is Tori Branham. Yes, this is a real picture she really posted on her real social media profiles. Because, wow. Now, Branham is running for a District 12 congressional seat in Georgia, and she just cost her district thousands of jobs with this stunt, but insists her voters are just plain dumb and will support her anyway. She said, quote, "The funniest part is people saying they're going to keep me from winning this election in District 12. Well, they're, smart one, I'm in a district with 22 counties that are all Republican, except for one." Basically, claiming she all but has her election locked in. She also added, "Most of y'all don't even know the difference in Congress or Senate or when the primary is." Now, Trump's response was basically, "Oops, my bad, but also ICE was totally right to do this." He told reporters, quote, "If you don't have people in this country that know about batteries, maybe we should help them along and let some people come in and train our people." Which is what they were fucking doing. Trump then tried to justify this embarrassment. He claimed that workers were here illegally, which means, once again, Don the Con Johnson has shown he's willing to just blatantly lie to cover his own ass. The workers had visas, many of which were valid, legal, and up to date. I think Trump's plan is to just bring back U.S. manufacturing, but not bring back manufacturing training. That definitely couldn't go horribly wrong. The whole thing got so bad that South Korea had to charter a plane to fly over 300 of their citizens home, and Hyundai paused construction on the entire project. Now that's some real 4D chess right there. Destroy your local economy and create a diplomatic crisis to prove how much you love white America. Now I don't know about you, everybody watching this stream and watching this show and listening to me right now, but I don't know what could be more on brand for Donald Trump and his administration than deporting all the factory workers you brought in yourself. Now, if you want to talk to us about this and you want to come defend your boy Don the Con Johnson, there's an easy way to do so. You call in to our stream right now. The call-in number, 914-268-6224. That number again, 914-268-6224. Call-in lines are open. Operators are standing by. Come and tell them your name, your age, your pronouns, and then they will connect you to me after the news segment of the show. Now, on to our next topic. 1/3 of farms in MAGA country may be facing bankruptcy. Now, I'm sure you've seen the clips this week, okay? But for those who haven't, here are my favorite highlights.
And I've never been as worried as I am now about whether or not my kids and grandkids will be able to carry on.
This time last year, the rice price was about 40% higher than it is now. The inputs costs have gone up. So after a horrible year last year where most farmers in Arkansas Delta lost money, this year's going to be worse.
I'm a sixth-generation farmer from Newport, and we made the decision to go out this year in the spring. So my son will not be the seventh generation on our farm.
5 of my customers have committed suicide. That's how serious that this is.
We're going to lose 25 or 30% of the farmers in this country if they don't do something. It has to be done, and it's not just here. It's everywhere.
The prices that we're getting now are prices like they were when we were children, and what it costs for us to farm is astronomical now. I mean, the price of a combine when we were kids was, in the 20,000s, and now it's 100,000.
I farm 800 acres by myself. I can't afford any help. I farm with paid-for equipment. All my tractors are 50 years old, and I can't hardly make this deal work. How's the guys farming 5 and 10,000 with 20 hands and $1 million combines and $1 million drills going to make it work? I think the tariffs are the ice cream on the cake of a perfect storm. When you try to sell a product, okay, U.S. soybeans leaving New Orleans without the tariff to China are cheaper than Brazilian soybeans at the current market. But when you put the tariff on top of them, Brazilian beans are cheaper.
When you broad brush tariffs like that against everything, knowing that agriculture in America needs an international market, it's just really unfair. How about you look at the items that you really could tariff that won't affect so many people.
To see somebody help us get our markets back, we need our exports, and we just need to be paid for what we do, and that's not happening, and we're in real trouble.
In the short term, they have no choice but to mail us a check. I don't know a farmer that likes the check program. Nobody wants to take taxpayer dollars, but nobody wants to go broke. Nobody wants to lose everything. Long term, we have to have options, markets, and places to sell our product.
We have to have ad hoc payments right now to make it through this year.
If there's no emergency funding this year, there will be 1 out of 3 farmers will file bankruptcy.
Mr. Trump, you looked at me, sir, and you said, I love you. Mr. Trump, I need to see the fruit of your love.
Do you guys smell that? It smells like fucked around and found out. That's exactly what it smells like. I know you might be thinking, hey, how is it that they didn't see this coming? I mean, did we have any evidence that Trump would have screwed over American farmers? Could there have possibly been 4 years prior to this in which Trump screwed over American farmers and cost them billions of dollars in a trade war with China? Could that have happened? I just can't think of a time. I can't, it's just too hard. Now, listen, we talk a lot on this show about worker solidarity, and I'm going to be honest, I do have solidarity with farmers. I do think farmers don't deserve to have their farms go bankrupt. I think they don't deserve to be struggling and worrying about where their next meal is going to come from, worry about how their mortgage is going to be paid. I believe all of this. I also believe they should have probably researched the guy before voting for him. You know who they should have voted for instead? Maybe the woman who was trying to come in and change things. Speaking of Harris, former Vice President Kamala Harris came out guns blazing against the Biden administration team in her new book. The book, titled 107 Days, is a look at her presidential campaign in the 2024 elections. And in the book, she slams Joe Biden and his team. Now, while it's too little too late for her to turn on Biden, it's a little validating knowing that even the vice president agreed, albeit in secret, Biden should not have run again in 2024. The first excerpt was made available by The Atlantic, and here are the highlights. Quote from the book. Worse, I often learned that the president's staff was adding fuel to negative narratives that sprang up around me. One narrative that took a stubborn hold was that I had a chaotic office, an unusually high staff turnover during my first year. Another quote reads, Joe was already polling badly on the age issue, with roughly 75% of voters saying he was too old to be an effective president. Then he started taking on water for his perceived blank check to Benjamin Netanyahu in Gaza. Another quote reads, their thinking was zero-sum. If she's shining, he's dimmed. None of them grasped that if I did well, he did well. That, given the concerns about his age, my visible success as vice president was vital. It would serve as a testament to his judgment in choosing me, and reassurance that if something happened, the country was in good hands. My success was important for him, his team didn't get it. Now this echoes what we all knew. Joe Biden claimed he would be a one-term president. He was too old to run in his second term, and he listened to nobody. He made a decision that impacted millions of people. Now, I do think Harris shouldn't shift all the blame. I think she ran an ineffective campaign and was too center on a lot of issues that the left really cared about. But it would have been very interesting to see what she could have done with more time. Now, listen, I believe a lot of things. I believe Joe Biden was too old to run. I believe he ran an ineffective campaign up until dropping out. I believe Harris came in and ran, like I just said, she ran an ineffective campaign. No matter what you say, Harris might have even recognized, as she says in her book, that Biden was too center on the issue of the current genocide happening in Gaza. But she didn't come out and speak publicly against it. Harris didn't come out and say we need to cancel funding for Israel. She didn't say any of these things. She's saying it now, in hindsight. But where was all of this? You know what could have easily got you that missing leftist vote, Kamala Harris? If you had made it very clear your stance was, we will not fund weapons for Israel. But unfortunately, the Democrats want to continue funding weapons for Israel. Now, if you want to talk about this, if you want to say, hey, Jovan, I have some thoughts on Kamala Harris, okay, call into the show. The number is on the screen, 914-268-6224. That number again, 914-268-6224. We do have our operator standing by to talk and to get your information so that way we can continue to move on with the stream and see everything else that's happening. Now, we got to talk about the Supreme Court because they did something that's kind of shitty. The Supreme Court voted to allow for legal racial profiling. In a 6-3 decision, the courts affirmed that ICE could continue to carry out its raids in California. The original decision by lower courts forced ICE to pause all raids in the Los Angeles area if those raids were committed based on certain criteria. That criteria being 1, presence at particular locations such as bus stops, car washes, day labor pickup sites, agricultural sites, and more. 2, the type of work one does. 3, speaking Spanish or speaking English with an accent, and 4, apparent race or ethnicity. All things that on their face should absolutely not be reasons you stop and detain someone. But the conservative side of the Supreme Court looked at all of this and said, you know what? We like Gestapo-era policing. The decision marks a win for fascism and a win for all of the old racist white men who hate hearing people speak Spanish in their Burger King dining rooms. In her dissenting opinion, Justice Sotomayor said, Ethnicity and language are often intertwined, so relying on only those two factors is no different than relying on ethnicity alone. Which is like, duh. I mean, what's next? Are we going to deport Dora? Arrest Handy Manny? Probably. Now, this decision comes in glaring contrast with the Supreme Court's decision 2 years ago in Fair Admissions Inc. v. President and Fellows of Harvard College, where the courts affirmed that race and ethnicity cannot be something colleges use to determine admission guidelines. So let me just get this straight. It's really bad when we use race to determine who goes to college, but it's really good when we use race to determine who we illegally detain and send to super prisons in countries run by dictators. And remember, ICE has quotas. It's reported that they're being instructed to arrest 3,000 people per day. That's 90,000 people per month. The only way they can even realistically meet that quota is if they are arresting every person they see with brown skin. It's like that Family Guy bit come to life. This decision spits in the face of the Fourth Amendment. People in this country, whether citizens or not, have a right against unlawful search and seizures. And it has been affirmed by the courts time and time again that detaining someone based solely on race or ethnicity counts as unlawful detainment. Now, lower courts have affirmed this, and the Supreme Court has affirmed this, and if you think they're going to stop at just brown people, then I have a river in Egypt that might be perfect for you. What do you think? Do you think it's okay that they're detaining people like this? Call in and let us know, especially if you disagree. Look, we are going to prioritize disagreements on the show. So if you disagree, I need you to pick up the phone. There are a couple of numbers you need to press, okay? Those numbers are 914-268-6224. Again, just pick up the phone. 914-268-6224. Okay? Now, next up, we need to talk about what Trump said on Twitter. Now, on September 6th, regarding Chicago, Trump, listen, I don't think you all get how completely crazy and threatening this was, because insane. Donald Trump posted a tweet with an AI-generated image of himself, okay? In the style of the film Apocalypse Now, captioned with, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning," and "Chicago is about to find out why it's called the Department of War." Let me just pause here for a moment. The President of the United States posted a meme likening his immigration policy to a war film, and specifically a shot of the napalm bombing of Vietnamese villages. This is how he's threatening an American city. I want you to remember this when they ask you which side likes to incite political violence. Apocalypse Now is not patriotic, by the way. It's no Top Gun or Saving Private Ryan. It's a film grounded in the reality of how war corrupts everything it touches, about how military power is divorced from any noble cause, and about how the war machine consumes the men who operate it. The fact that Trump identifies with that imagery tells you everything you need to know about the way he views his role as president. But this was not just a tacky social media tweet. This was Trump announcing his plan to militarize enforcement of immigration policy in ways that are prohibited by federal law and constitutional norms. Now, on September 8th, Operation Midway Blitz, the name for Trump's immigration enforcement in Chicago, began with hundreds of ICE agents backed up by National Guard troops sweeping through the city. And these were not targeted raids against specific criminals. These were wholesale arrests of any person who could not promptly prove their citizenship. They installed street checkpoints, they raided workplaces, schools, and even churches. Remember, churches, the place that you're supposed to have sanctuary. This was not about arresting people. It was about scaring communities. They specifically targeted Mexican Independence Day celebrations, making it so that families had to choose between celebrating their heritage or avoiding detention. Trump deployed federal troops in Chicago over the explicit objections of the governor, the mayor, and the whole city council, as Governor J.B. Pritzker told MSNBC Illinois, had received nothing but the federal government about these operations. Nothing. They told them nothing. The federal government has been staging military-style raids in U.S. cities, and they won't even notify state authorities what they were doing. And we're supposed to believe this is the party of states' rights. And it's not exclusive to Chicago. Trump has deployed National Guard troops to Boston, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and Washington, D.C. And in D.C., Pentagon officials say that there are over 2,200 troops from a few states patrolling the streets. The United States Capitol feels like a city in martial law. Now, I know what we're going to hear from a lot of people on the right about this. A lot of people are going to go, well, listen, I think it's worth it. I think having militarized occupation in our cities is worth it if it means that crime is down. And I'm going to reject this wholesale. We know what lowers crime rates, and it's effective community investment. Crime rates go lower when there are investments into your community like before and after school care, crisis help centers, homeless prevention centers. These things help crime. What doesn't help crime is a government sending its military in to crack down on it. You know what that actually does? It makes the government the criminals. So what do you think? I'm going to tell you the number again, 914-268-6224. I'm going to say it again, 914-268-6224. If you disagree with me and you go, Jovan, I think America should have a police state. Call in and tell me why. Call in and tell me why. Now, I need to talk to you guys about something absolutely incredible that just happened in Nepal that the mainstream media is barely covering. We're talking about a full-scale government overthrow. Not through elections, not through a military coup, but through Gen Z protesters who literally burned down parliament and forced a prime minister to resign. And it all started with a social media ban. Now here's what happened. On September 4th, Nepal's government decided to ban 26 social media platforms. Now we're talking Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, basically anything that connects young people to the world. The government claimed these platforms failed to register under new regulations, but come on, this wasn't about bureaucratic red tape, this was about controlment of a narrative. You see, there was this viral trend called Nepo Kids that was exposing the children of Nepal's political elite flaunting their luxury lifestyles online. Now, while the average Nepali makes $1,400 a year, that's less than $4 a day, these politicians' kids were posting videos of themselves with designer clothes, expensive cars, and lavish parties. The government saw this trend gaining traction and said, nope, we're shutting this down. But here's what they didn't count on. You can't really silence Gen Z. On September 8th, tens of thousands of young Nepalis poured into the streets of Kathmandu. They weren't just angry about social media. They were furious about decades of corruption, nepotism, and being shut out of their own country's future. Unemployment among young people in Nepal is over 20%. A third of Nepal's entire economy comes from workers who've had to leave the country to find jobs abroad because there's no opportunities at home. And how did Prime Minister KP Sharma Ali respond to these peaceful protesters? Well, he sent in the police with live ammunition. They fired directly into crowds of young people. 19 protesters were killed on September 8th alone, including a 12-year-old child. That's when everything changed. On September 9th, the protests exploded across the entire country. They weren't just demonstrations anymore. This was a revolution. Protesters stormed Parliament and set it on fire. They burned down the Supreme Court. They attacked the homes of government ministers and political party headquarters. The Prime Minister's own residence was ransacked and torched. Take a look. Now get this. They were coordinating through Discord servers. They were sharing tactical information and organizing actions across multiple cities simultaneously through Discord. This was digital native political warfare, and the old guard had absolutely no idea how to respond. Now, the death toll climbed to over 30 people as security forces kept firing on protesters. But here's what's incredible. Instead of backing down, more people joined. Parents, grandparents, students, workers, entire communities came out despite a government-imposed curfew. Less than 48 hours after the deadly crackdown, Prime Minister Ali resigned. Government ministries started quitting en masse. The protesters had literally brought down the government. But they didn't stop there. The Gen Z movement demanded specific things. They wanted Shashili Karki as interim prime minister. And who is she? Well, she's a 73-year-old former Supreme Court Chief Justice. Nepal's first and only female Chief Justice, who built her entire career fighting corruption. When politicians tried to impeach her in 2017 for overturning their corrupt appointments, the public rallied behind her so strongly that they had to back down. And here's what's beautiful. The protesters chose through an informal vote on Discord. Generation Z used a gaming chat platform to select the next prime minister of Nepal. On September 12th, she was sworn in as Nepal's first female prime minister, surrounded by young protesters who had just overthrown a corrupt government. Now, why does this matter? And why does it matter beyond Nepal? Well, this is the third time in 3 years that youth-led movements in South Asia have successfully toppled governments. Sri Lanka in 2022, Bangladesh in 2024, and now Nepal in 2025. There's a pattern here, and it's spreading. These aren't traditional political movements with established leaders and party structures. These are decentralized, digitally organized uprisings led by young people who've been shut out of economic opportunities and political power. They're using social media, gaming platforms, and messaging apps to coordinate actions that older political establishments simply cannot predict or control. And they're not asking for reform. They're demanding complete transformation. In Nepal, the new government had dissolved parliament and scheduled fresh elections for March 2026. They're promising to include Generation Z representatives in the interim government and prosecute those responsible for the deadly crackdown. Now, the traditional tools of political control, media manipulation, information restrictions, even violent crackdowns aren't working anymore. When you try to silence digital natives, they just find new platforms. When you try to suppress them with force, it only makes them more determined. Nepal's Gen Z protesters didn't just overthrow a government. They sent a message to corrupt leaders everywhere. Your time is up. Adapt or get swept away. Because this generation has nothing left to lose and everything left to fight for. And to anyone who thinks this could never happen in established democracies, remember, institutions only hold power as long as people believe in them. When that belief collapses, as it has in Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, everything changes overnight. Now, what do you guys think? Do you think that, this is some of the coolest shit you've ever seen? Are you like, no, how dare Nepal people fight back against the corrupt government? They should have stayed oppressed. If you think the second, call into the show, 914-268-6224. That number again, 914-268-6224. You can call in. Now, lastly for today, and this next part of the show is going to be pretty serious. We're going to talk about Charlie Kirk's assassination. Except not in the way you think. It is true that on September 10th, Charlie Kirk, a man who has become famous from preaching hate speech and harmful rhetoric on the internet, was killed during what appears to be an apparent assassination on his life. This was an act of political violence, and as much as I hated the man, I did not wish him dead. I will not condemn anyone for celebrating his life, and I will not condemn anyone celebrating the loss of his life, and I will not act like I care that he's no longer here. But here's what really keeps me up at night. We had a school shooting the same day Charlie Kirk was killed. And that story has been completely overshadowed. Children were terrorized and traumatized, and nobody's talking about it because we're all focused on the death of a controversial political figure. So, we are going to talk about it. Instead of focusing time to talk about Kirk, we're going to dedicate this next segment of the show and the impact that it's had. Now, at 12:24 p.m. on Wednesday, September 10th, 16-year-old Desmond Holley walked into Evergreen High School with a revolver and a significant amount of ammunition. He waited until lunchtime, when the cafeteria would be its most crowded, and then began systematically shooting his way through the school. According to Jefferson County Sheriff's Office spokesperson Jackie Kelly, Holley, quote, continued to fire and reload, fire and reload, fire and reload. This went on and on. He wasn't targeting specific people. He was hunting for anyone he could find, moving through the building, looking for what authorities described as targets. 2 students were critically wounded. 18-year-old Matthew Silverstone remains in critical condition. A second student, whose name hasn't been released, is fighting for their life as well. Holley shot out windows, destroyed lockers, and left spent rounds throughout multiple areas of the school. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office say that there were multiple crime scenes inside the building because of how much damage he caused as he moved through the hallways. Holley didn't just randomly decide to do this. According to investigators, he was, quote, radicalized by some extremist networks. His social media accounts, found by the Denver Post, were littered with references to mass shootings and anti-Semitic views. Officers responded in 2 minutes and encountered Holley within 5 minutes. But by then, he had already shot 2 of his classmates and was hunting for more victims. He ultimately turned the gun on himself, dying at a Lakewood hospital from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Now, we've accepted this as normal. We absolutely have. Cameron Jones, a 9th grader at Evergreen, said he was eating lunch outside when he heard 3 gunshot rounds, and a security guard told him to run. He said he never thought a shooting would happen in Evergreen, but the fact that a 9th grader knows exactly what gunshots sound like and knows to run when he hears them tells you everything about how normal this has become. Domestic terrorism carried out by a radicalized teenager with easy access to firearms is normal. I wish I could say it feels weird to say, but this is just another day in the United States. Matthew Silverstone is 18 years old. He should be thinking about college applications and prom and his future. Instead, he's fighting for his life in a hospital bed because a radicalized classmate decided to shoot up their school. The unnamed second victim is someone's child, someone's sibling, someone's friend. They went to school on Monday morning expecting a normal day, and instead they got shot by a Nazi teenager with a revolver. Meanwhile, we're still having debates about whether this is a gun problem or a mental health problem or a social media problem, as if it can't be all 3 things at once. And if we can't address extremist content online and improve mental health services and implement gun safety common sense gun safety measures at the same time. But we won't do any of those things because some people have decided that dead children are an acceptable price to pay. And in a few days, this story will disappear entirely, and we'll move on to the next crisis, and the next school shooting, and the next set of thoughts and prayers, until eventually we're right back here again with different names and different hospitals and the same damn preventable tragedy. That's it for our news today. That's all we've got for you. Thank you for being here during the news portion of our show. If you would like to talk about any of the things we talked about, now is the time to call in. The number on the screen, 914-268-6224. The lines are open, ready to go. We're ready to hear from you. Call us and let us know. We personally here at the show think Trump and MAGA are destroying America. We here at the show think we should have some semblance of common sense gun control. We here at the show think that governments that oppress their people, especially to the point of economic collapse, should probably be overthrown. Well, I think. So call us in if you want to chat. I'll say the number one more time, 914-268-6224. That number again, 914-268-6224. Call us in. I don't know if we've gotten any calls yet, but I'm here hoping. Nobody's called in, so I guess I won the internet. I won against all the who do we argue against? I've beaten every single MAGA. I beat all of you? That's crazy. All MAGA lost to me, Jovan Bradley? Amazing. Well, we're going to give you guys a little bit of time to call in. We're going to go on a quick break, just a very quick break. We'll give you guys some time to call in. I'll say the number one more time, 914-268-6224. Again, 914-268-6224. We'll give you one last chance to call in while we go on a break, and then we will be back in about 3 to 4 minutes. See you. number 2 news. Wait, I did that wrong. Your number 2 source for number 1 news. We had a good show today. Thank you again to producer Steve and technical director Chris for helping us get everything set up, helping us get all the news created. We are going to be back next week, same bat channel. We'll let you know the bat time. I have been your host, Jovan Bradley, and I still don't have an outro. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.